These are the worst starter Pokemon. Legends EA has finally revealed our starter lineup for our new Kalos adventure, being Chikorita, Tepig, and Totodile. But will they get a Mega Evolution or a Regional Evolution like in Legends before? I'm a firm believer in Regional Evolutions and I'll explain why, but let's create new Regional Evolutions for our Pokemon Legends EA starters. Alright, let's start with Grass, Chikorita. Now I'm gonna be real with you, I've never been a Chikorita fan, for those who don't know. No! No! It's never really stood out to me and I just don't find it cute. And I'm guessing Bayleaf will stay consistent, it's slightly better, but mainly because Ash's was cool in the anime. Though like in Legends Arceus, I think the first and middle stage will stay the same in the game. Though it's interesting, as it looks like Chikorita has already hinted to learn new moves in the game with disarming voice. That made creating the regional evolution pretty easy. So without further ado, here is Kalosian Meganium. Or is it Lamosian Meganium? Either way, check it out, it's our Kalos-based Meganium, and of course, it's a grass and fairy type. This just feels like the right direction, you know? Adding the fairy typing completes it. Let's face it, Meganium isn't exactly a fan favorite, and it's just not that great to use. It has a weak move pool and poor stats. But of course, that's about to change here. For the design, I drew from inspirations of French elements, like the fleur de lis for the shape of the flower, to which the flower is based on an iris, a very popular French flower. And Meganium is all about flowers. And I noticed in Lumio City, it's bursting with so many of them on the different buildings, so it just makes sense. To match the fairy typing, I added splashes of pink, lighter pastel greens, and a more inviting palette. Though I'll say, I still don't love Meganium, but this is a definite improvement in my eyes. Plus, Chikorita actually is the second most popular choice on most polls I've seen. And of course, for the shiny, it's based on the original colors of the original Pokemon. Again, I don't love Meganium, but I love how this turned out, and it wouldn't be possible without Dark and Windy the GOAT, who helped me bring this design and the others to life in this video. Though that being said, let's check out our next starter. Tepig, the odd Pokemon out. Tepig is an option I would have never guessed, especially alongside two general starters. But I'll say it, I'm picking Tepig. Why? Pretty simple. If I find a Froakie later, which I'm pretty sure I will, I'll add it to my team and I have a fire and water combo. However, I do know Tepig is the least popular pick, which might be because of its evolution, Pignite. While Pignite isn't terrible, it's not exactly great either. But in Lumiose, things will be a little bit different. Now for those who are worried about this Pokemon getting a form but keeping the same typing, first of all, that doesn't make any sense. And second, it wouldn't happen, as Dartrick was a dual type middle stage that changed its final typing both times. So without further ado, here is Kalosian Emboar. Our strong Mega Pig Pokemon has gained a very rare fire and steel typing. While I'm not the biggest Emboar fan, as I love Superior, I think with this final typing it makes it really cool and can have some decent stats. Though for Emboar, other types like Rock, Ground, and Dark were all viable options and still possible, especially pairing with the fire type. Now as for inspiration, I kept it real simple and I went with a French cooking inspiration. With the fire typing, that just makes sense, right? Not to mention pigs and pork are very popular in French cuisine. So in the design, you'll see some heat stove-like vent on its belly, the fire source coming out of its hand, and how more of its body is covered in this steel, which adds a nice shininess to him. Plus, to add some flair and make it different from its Unovan counterpart, it has a fiery mustache, which is very iconic to French mustaches, and of course adding in some smoky eyebrows, oh, and a fiery tail. Altogether, I really like this design. Sleek, but bulky, nice with a fire mustache, you really can't go wrong. And of course, the shiny is top tier. Say what you want about Emboar, but its shiny is one of the best shiny starters of all time. But now that only leaves one starter left, Totodile. The hands down most popular pick out of this trio of Pokemon. And honestly, Totodile feels kind of like the odd one out of this group because it's nowhere near as unpopular as the other two, as this spot for unpopular could have went to Sobble or Popplio even. But let's be real, Totodile is just a goofball. It is a Pokemon that likes to play around, and that's the same for its evolution, Croconaw. And I'll say undeniably, it's one of the rougher middle stages, I'll give you that. But even in this awkward phase, heading into Feraligatr, it has so much potential. I could see it getting the rock typing, pulling inspiration from gargoyles, French gargoyles. Or how about dragon, because that's just so damn cool. Or even fighting or dark, which both actually works really well. So being me, I had to do something a little bit different. So get ready for Kalosian Feraligatr. This beast is now a water and poison type. Again, there was so many options available. And as an original mono-type Pokemon, it's just practically limitless. And I think with the poison typing, it helps carve out its own identity amongst the other water starter, especially the recent ones, as we have Quaquaval, which is a water and fighting type, and the previous legend starter Samurott, which is a water and dark type. Not to mention it's in a region with Greninja, who is also water and dark. Though looking at the inspiration, it pulled from the urban legend of Eleanor, a Nile crocodile who supposedly lurked in the Paris sewers and even inspired Lacoste, the brand. And yes, I'm aware that Feraligatr is based on an alligator, but here, just work with me. Taking that lore of living in the murky sewers, I knew poison would be a perfect fit. Which led into the design of it being more green, waterlogged look, alongside these poison looking scales. It also has these poison sac pouches all over, which I'd imagine if you hit one, you become poison too. Oh, and it also has a more angular jaw, a little bit bigger, and large poisonous hands and arms, which I think just adds a bit of menacing to the Pokemon, adds a little bit of cool to it. And for its shiny, it of course plays back to the original colors of Feraligatr with some hints of purple, which I think actually looks really damn good. But this leads back to my question, why regional forms over Megas? Well, it just makes sense. For Pokemon Legends, a part of the experience in a familiar location is using old Pokemon and forcing them to adapt. Though Rowlet, Cyndaquil, and Oshawott were a random bunch, it worked out so well because they were so different and they got Hisuian forms. I don't think Hisui would have hit if it were the same with just the Sinnoh starters or even these starters with their original forms. Not to mention, more than likely you'll see the Kalos starters in the wild zones, if not they'll be gifts like the original Kanto starters in X and Y. Those Pokemon are locked, so there's no need to worry about those, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna get Megas for those Kalos starters. There's no way we don't, right? But overall, think about the experience of already having a Kalosian form starter to kickstart your adventure, and then adding a Mega Kalos Pokemon or a starter to your team as well. It works so beautifully and enhances the experience so much more. By just giving us a Mega for these Pokemon and having Mega Meganium, Emboar, and Feraligatr is cool, but only for this game? These Pokemon will still be the same awful Pokemon you didn't use before. Like Meganium sucks, and of course with a Mega Evolution it'll be solid, but then it'll be trash again in the next game. Now of course Champions seems to be the most counter to this, but not everyone is going to play Champions. It's more set for competitive, especially for the target audience of these games being kids. By just giving us these 3 starters, they'll just be hated as much as before, they'll just be used in Champions. But with regional variants, they can last so much longer and be transferred to other games. There's more options to use those in later installments versus Megas, because you need the game to have Megas to use it. Like, look at the Hisuian starters, all 3 of them are in Scarlet and Violet. They weren't gatekept behind a gimmick at all. Then for the next Legends game, you make it the starters of Superior, Incineroar, and Primarina, and that way they have regional evolutions, and then Gen 2, Gen 5, and Gen 7 is taken care of. So all in all, having regional starters outclasses and adds future longevity to other games and competitive changes to those Pokemon that also works for Champions as well. So it's a win-win with regional forms. But I'm curious, what do you guys think of the 3 starter evolutions for Pokemon Legends ZA? Do you expect Megas or different typings? Let me know in the comments down below. Either way, Legends ZA is around the corner, it's coming, and I'm gonna be hyped for it.